The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Okay, I think we're live here this morning. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, or maybe even good evening to you, and welcome to a Spider Strategies free monthly training webinar. Thank you for attending. This month of November 2018, we're going to be covering using and creating initiatives, tasks, and milestones in QuickScore. My name is Tom Keating. I'm honored and pleased to be your presenter today. I'm a training and customer experience consultant at Spider Strategies, and I would like to just share with you my personal email address of tom.keating@spiderstrategies.com and invite any of you, our beloved customers and partners, to contact me at any point in time with questions or issues or anything I can help you with regarding training and the customer experience with QuickScore. Quick couple logistic points I want to cover with you is, first of all, this webinar is being recorded for your future use and reference. You'll be able to easily access the recording via our Spider Strategies website. All you live attendees right now are presently muted. In these webinars, I always apologize for that fact. I really wish that we could make this more of a dialogue, an interactive dialogue presentation rather than a monologue from me. But we've learned over time that if we don't mute the attendees, inevitably there'll be some kind of background noise or something that will inhibit the smooth presentation and the ability to record this and reuse it in the future. But with that said, if and when you have any questions or want to communicate anything about this session back to me, please, again, feel free to email me at my personal email address or at our education department email at learn@spiderstrategies.com. Let's talk about what we're going to cover today. Today's agenda. We're going to start with an introductory overview of initiatives, tasks, and milestones. We'll get into a demonstration of the use and creation of initiatives, tasks, and milestones in QuickScore. We'll also give you a demonstration of how to easily relate initiatives, tasks, and milestones to your scorecard items. And lastly, how to use initiatives as feeders to measures within scorecards. Okay, so the first, again, agenda item is, again, this idea of an introductory overview. I'm going to do this in a couple of, if you will, phases by starting with just clarifying terms or terminology with you. So before we get into any kind of a demonstration, just want to make sure you understand what an initiative is in QuickScore. It's effectively a project that's created to address and improve the performance of measures or objectives or perspectives in your performance management strategy scorecard. An initiative is typically comprised of a name, a description, a start date, a due date, and a budget. I'll pause here and just let you know that the only thing that's actually required to define an initiative is a name. The description, start date, due date, and budget are all actually optional. And an initiative may often be supported, or if you will, fed by other underlying initiatives, tasks, or milestones. So initiative can be quite simple in nature, or it can end up being somewhat, if you will, complex because it is provided with information from underlying, if you will, other initiatives, tasks, or milestones. So let's move on to what is a task in QuickScore. A task is a relatively short-term project intended to address and improve the performance of measures, objectives, or perspectives in, again, a performance management scorecard. It's very much like an initiative. You'll see that when we look at how you set the tasks up, they're just like initiatives. They're basically junior initiatives. And again, they are typically comprised of a name, a description, a start date, a due date, and a budget. And they are usually employed as contributing components of a larger initiative. I always like to call them kind of the to-do action items within a larger initiative. Lastly, what is a milestone in QuickScore? Milestone is essentially a deadline defined for the completion of an action that, again, is intended to improve performance of measures within your scorecards. Again, it's typically comprised of a name, a description, a due date, and a budget. And just like tasks, they're usually employed as a contributing component of a larger initiative. Again, basically another, if you will, to-do within a larger initiative, a deadline that needs to be met. Okay, let's move on again in the idea of just introducing you, if you will, to initiatives, tasks, and milestones. What I'd like to do is invite you to join me in looking at a case study of how we used initiatives, tasks, and milestones in the marketing department at our Mobile World Inc. organization over the summer of 2018. What you'll see in this demonstration is that at the marketing department, we identified performance issues. We created some initiatives, tasks, and milestones to correct those issues. We consolidated the analysis for ease of presentation and visualization, just to make it easier to view and consume and understand. And then we analyzed and reacted to the initiatives and what kind of impact they were having on the issues that we had identified. Okay, let's jump into a demonstration here. I'm going to ask you to join me in Storyland to talk about this case study in the summer of 2018. I always like to start demonstrations from the QuickScore homepage. So here we are, of course, viewing the QuickScore homepage. And what we'll do is jump in to the marketing department's scorecard. So on the left in the net black navigation pane, I'll select scorecards. And then I'm going to change the organization that we're working with from the, if you will, the parent company of Mobile World Inc. into the departmental organization for marketing. We'll navigate into marketing and we'll take a look and see what marketing has presently set up in terms of a scorecard and its underlying objectives and feeder measures. Before I get in there, folks, again, I'm going to ask you to jump into the QuickScore time machine with me, because we're talking about a case study that begins at the beginning of summer of 2018. So I'm going to use the calendar period selector in the upper right to navigate back in time to the end of May 2018. And then we'll step out of our time machine and see what we have to view here at this point in time. So the marketing department or organization has its scorecard, which is comprised of two overriding objectives. The first is to improve brand awareness. The second is to increase lead generation. For the purposes of this story or case study, we're going to be focusing just purely on the increased lead generation objective. And of course, within the marketing department, as they analyze their performance over time via QuickScore, they can obviously take a look at each of the individual measures which feed that increased lead generation, ad clicks, campaign emails sent, telesales calls completed, and so on. So they, of course, can one by one view the performance of each of those unique measures and their impact on the larger performance of the increased lead generation objective. What the marketing department has done is for themselves, for their monthly, end of month meeting, they've created a dashboard, which is called the Overview of Increased Lead Generation Objective. And you see that what they have done here is compiled all 5 of the underlying measures onto a nice cockpit style dashboard. I'll just go ahead and increase the real estate that we're using here to view this. So imagine with me, if you will, that it's the end of May 2018, the marketing team is together and they want to see how they're doing. So thanks to the wonderful normalized scoring and color coding provided through QuickScore, they're easily able to identify areas of strong performance and areas of concern. So in terms of strong performance in the lower left, campaign emails sent, we're doing great at the end of May. Client meetings in the far upper right are doing okay, but there's a little bit of a troubling trend where it's decreasing from the previous time period. So through this dashboard, a single, simple one-click drill through allows them to investigate details of what was happening with client meetings. And what we saw was that there was a slight decrease in terms of the number of client meetings, but it's still in the green, and we're still pleased with the overall performance exceeding our goal threshold. Back to the dashboard in the lower right-hand corner for the leads measure, we investigate that and see that over time there's a bit of a troubling trend. While we're still in the green, overperforming, and just at this point, at the end of May, we're just barely meeting the goal threshold. So we're still green, but we have a relatively troubling downward trend occurring over the past 7 months. So we certainly make mental note of that, and then navigate back again to the overview dashboard. And in the upper left corner, we have an ad clicks measure. So let's take a dive into that and see how that's performing. And what we find here is a trend that's really, it's beyond troubling. It's pretty much scary. That over the past 5 months, we've descended from 1626 all the way down to 1180. We've gone from solid green to now we're completely underperforming. We've dipped below our red flag threshold, and this is something we immediately acknowledge that we have to address. Okay. Now, with that said, we the marketing team got together, everyone leaned in and said, well, what can we do about these things? And we decided to create a couple initiatives to address or projects to address the troubling trends that we saw in ad clicks and that we saw in leads. So I'm going to navigate into the initiatives area of QuickScore, and we'll see here, I'm going to bring back open the black navigation pane, the secondary navigation pane. We created an increased quantity of leads initiative and an increased quantity of ad clicks initiative. And you'll see just right up front that these two initiatives are a little different from each other. The first one is a pretty simple initiative without any underlying tasks or milestones, while the second one, to increase quantity of ad clicks, is a little more complex. It has an initiative, and this is where I should touch on the icons or the graphics associated with initiatives, tasks, and milestones. An initiative will be visually indicated as basically a bulleted list icon is what I like to call it. A task will be represented by a check within a circle, and a milestone is visually represented as a diamond. So let's take a look at the nature of these initiatives that we created, again, back at the end of May of 2018. I'm going to jump into edit mode here within the initiatives section of QuickScore, and we'll take a look at what we set up for increased quantity of leads. We, of course, gave it a name. Again, I'll reiterate that that's really the only required element of an initiative. We then gave it a description where we say, we need to increase leads. We're giving you a $5,000 budget, use it any way you want, but please make immediate incremental improvements to the quantity of leads. In the upper right, we set this up as an initiative. We provided a start date of June 1st, 2018, a due date of the end of August, 2018, and again, a $5,000 budget. In terms of who is going to be responsible for this initiative, we assigned it to Maya Ugly Twin. Teak Keating is effectively the owner, the assigned owner of this initiative to increase quantity of leads. Let's move on then and take a look at the second initiative that we created, which is the increased quantity of ad clicks. Again, we provided it with a fairly simplistic description, but we do acknowledge here that we're going to attack this initiative by combining some underlying tasks and milestones to drive, hopefully, an increase in the quantity of ad clicks. Towards the upper right, we set it up as an initiative. And again, in this case, we did not define a start date or a due date or a budget for this particular initiative. Those pieces of information, which are going to be critical to monitoring the performance of this initiative over time, are going to come from the underlying tasks and milestones within this initiative. And again, we assigned this particular initiative to, again, my ugly twin brother, Teak Keating. Okay, so let's take a look at the tasks that we created. We put together put a special offer in the headline task. The idea behind this is our marketing geniuses know that the headline of your ad is often the first and sometimes only thing that searchers, read. So it's important to get a special offer in our headline. We set this up as a task, and notice that the type drop down gives me choices of initiative, task, or milestone. So we, of course, set it up as a task. Again, we defined a start date of June 1st, a due date for this task of the end of August, and we gave this task a total budget of $5,000. Again, we assigned it to Teak Keating. Moving on, another task that we created, I don't want to save any changes there. Another task that we created was to research main keyword for the display URL. Again, the idea here is that the display URL is part of your ad text and should be utilized as such, but sometimes people just leave it blank. That's not good. So it's, again, set up as a task, starting again on June 1st, ended on August 15th in this case. We would like to get this task completed in advance of the milestone to define a main keyword. Again, we gave this task a budget of $5,000 and again assigned it to Teak Keating. Lastly, pardon me, we created a milestone, which is to define that main keyword. That's great that we researched the main keyword for like a month and a half or 2.5 months, I should say. But eventually we have to define what that main keyword is going to be. So we set this up as a milestone or a deadline that's due at the end of August 2018. And we gave this a minor budget of $200 in case people need to get together to have lunch to decide what that main keyword should be. Again, the owner of this milestone is, again, Mr. T. Keating. So at that point, what we've done is set up 2 initiatives in 2 different ways. Before we move on in time to start looking at the impact of these initiatives on our business, let's just reflect that these initiatives, of course, are intended to have some impact, or they may be impacted by areas of the business outside of the initiatives themselves. So I'm now out of edit mode, and we're still at the end of May here in terms of the scorecard, but in the initiatives section, what I need to do is scroll down and look at underneath the graph for historical performance, and we'll come back and talk about the details of the overview tab a little later. But note that down along the bottom there are a couple related items. And the idea here is that our initiative to increase quantity of leads, we have, of course, hope and expect will have impact on our leads measure. So we set up leads as a related item, and we set up ad clicks as another related item, because we believe that if we can increase the quantity of ad clicks, that should assist the idea of increasing the quantity of leads. So one of our related items will be impacted by the initiative. Another of our related items we believe will impact the initiative, right? And in relating these, what we've done for ourselves is given us quick and easy access through that initiative to immediate access to visibility to how that particular measure of, in this case, leads is performing as the initiative is put in place over time, and we can view the results. Similarly, with the increased quantity of ad clicks initiative, if I again scroll down, I have got here some related items of, obviously, ad clicks is a measure we expect to be impacted. We also hope that increase of ad clicks will increase client meetings. And of course, as we said, hopefully increased ad clicks will also generate for us more leads. Okay, so let's jump back into our time machine at this point in time. I'll go back into the scorecards area. And imagine, again, the marketing team now getting together towards the end of June 2018. And again, in this case, what we can do is, again, leverage that overview of increased lead generation dashboard. Again, I'm just going to shrink down the navigation pane just to give us a little more real estate to view the dashboard. So the marketing team, again, got together at the end of June 2018. We see improved performance up in the upper right on client meetings. That's great. Down in the right-hand corner, leads, right? This was certainly one of the measures that we had hoped to impact from one of our initiatives. And we see a little bit of a troubling trend here where it's gone from green, it's now yellow. So let's drill through and take a look at that. And we see that, performance is continuing to decline. We're not getting any better, even 1 month in to the establishment of the initiative to increase the quantity of leads. And what we can do is real quickly here say, well, boy, there's no improvement here. Let's look at that initiative. So again, in the same way that the measures were available in the related items to the initiative that you tied to it is also available under related items from the measure. So there's like a bi-directional navigation opportunity between things that you have chosen to relate. And what we can see here, again, if we go back and again, imagine here the time machine idea, that we're back at the end of June of 2018, and we see that that initiative at the end of June was 30% complete. They had spent we had spent $1,000 on it already. So, okay, it's in swing. It seems to be following the goal linear progression as presented here in gray. So as far as we can tell, the initiative is doing what it's supposed to do, but of course the results that we're viewing are not what we had desired at the end of June. Let's move ahead here back to the dashboard and take a look in the upper left at our ad clicks. So that's, again, the other measure that we really hope to impact from one of our initiatives. If we look at ad clicks, we see really positive information here, where as we moved from the end of May to the end of June, we saw improvement in our performance in terms of going from 1,180 ad clicks to 1,330, and that's great. And again, if we wanted to investigate what's happening with the initiative behind the scenes, we again can, under related items, we were able to click on the increased quantity of ad clicks. And again, take note that at the end of June, the initiative was moving forward. It was 28% complete, and $2,210 had been spent at that point in time at the end of June. So this initiative is already delivering some fairly, positive results in terms of an improvement in performance. Now, before we move on, at this point, here we are again at the end of June, marketing team meeting, and someone says, this information is great, but is there possibly a way that we could consolidate all these different views together into, like a one-screen overview where I see the performance and I see the initiative and I see details about that initiative? And we can do that within QuickScore. And what we did do back in mid-June was to create a couple of new dashboards. So first of all, we created an increased ad clicks dashboard, where you'll see here that what we've done is provide immediate visibility to the ad clicks measure itself, its performance over time, just like you see within the scorecard view of our measures. We also included visibility to the tasks that underlie the increased ad clicks initiative. So we see right here on our dashboard the idea of putting a special offer in the headline and researching the main keyword for display. We also have a Gantt chart style view of the overall increased quantity of ad clicks initiative, and we're able to click on that Gantt chart view to get a sense of how we're progressing over time, where we can see details including the description, the projected schedule, and the projected total budget. So we created that dashboard to give us a consolidated view of the increased ad clicks, performance, and initiative. We also created another dashboard to give us visibility to the increased leads. Again, measure its performance over time and a view of the initiative. Again, including a graph of its performance versus budget, as well as a Gantt chart style, view of a timeline in terms of how we're performing over time. So with that said, let's jump back into our marketing team meeting dashboard, and again, jump back into our time machine and imagine that we forge ahead to the end of July 2018. In this case, of course, our focus is the two measures of leads and ad clicks. So with regard to leads in the lower right-hand corner, that is, of course, what immediately catches our attention, where what we see is underperformance. We've dipped from a couple months ago, we were on the border of green. Now we're right on the cusp of falling into the red. We've actually fallen into the below, red flag area, and we see that we're continuing to decrease or decline in our performance for this leads measure, which is, of course, very troubling. And what we can do is take a look at the increased quantity of leads initiative itself right here. We can drill through with just a kind of a logical follow the train of thought type initiative of, investigation. Or, of course, what we can do is employ that increased leads dashboard to just get a nice consolidated view of everything all together on one page. And we see that as of, again, the end of July, we were 60% done with this particular initiative. We had spent $3,600 on it. But again, in terms of delivery of performance, we are not really delivering on the idea of increasing leads. So that's very, very concerning. And what we did as a marketing team at this point was to pause and say, this just isn't working. I think it's time to stop funding and stop putting effort into this particular initiative. So at the end of July, we as a marketing team decided to just stop with this increased leads initiative. On the other hand, if we compare performance against the increased ad clicks dashboard, again, at the end of July, we see, again, great delivery of performance up along the top. We've moved from all the way red when we started a couple months ago. We're now bordering on getting into the green, surpassing our goal area. We're continuing to improve, and we see that both the tasks to put a special offer in the headline and to research the main keyword for display URLs, both of those tasks are, again, on pace with the goal progression that we hope to see. And again, for either one of them, if we wanted to investigate, a projected schedule at that point in time and a projected budget at that point in time, we have easy visibility to those. And so obviously we continue to fund and put effort into this increase, the ad clicks initiative. Again, if we then jump back into our time machine and move ahead, knowing that at the end of August was really the deadline for many of our tasks and initiatives, we see that at the end of August, with regard to increasing the ad clicks, we continue to see improvement, which was wonderful. Both of the tasks are effectively complete and under budget. It's always good to see in our graphical presentation of percent complete on a project or an initiative or a task and the budget spent to date. It's always helpful and wonderful to see if the blue budget spent to date is below the percent complete line. That just is a really positive indication that we're not spending too much money, and yes, we're progressing with either the initiative or the task. And so obviously over time, again, we'll jump back into our time machine and take a look at the end of September 2018, that increased ad clicks initiative is delivering exactly the type of results that we wanted when we set it up. Whereas if we go and take another look at increased leads, after defunding it and stopping putting effort into it back at the end of July, obviously we didn't have any improvements in August, and we're really still falling further into the red as we move into September. So obviously we had some work to do back at that point in time. Okay, so that wraps up that, if you will, case study demonstration. And really what I hope you pulled from that is the opportunity within QuickScore to bring together components that really give you an overall understanding of how you're performing on measures and initiatives and tasks, and be able to bring them all together in one nice consolidated view like we've created here in these dashboards. Okay. With that said, let's forge on here with our webinar. We're approaching about halfway through. We've covered that. Okay, we're going to spend about 5 or 10 minutes here just getting back to the basics. The premise here is that there may be some of you who are viewing this webinar who might just be completely unfamiliar with initiatives, tasks, and milestones. So we'll go back to a little bit of 101 level education here. What are they? Where are they? How do you employ them within QuickScore? This section of the meeting today will be done via screen captures, and the idea there is it gives me the opportunity in screen captures to highlight the areas of navigation that I'd like to just focus your attention and not need to trust that you're following my mouse. So let's start again at the home page. If you want to work with or create initiatives, tasks, or milestones, you're going to do it within the initiatives section. When you click on initiatives and start entering the initiatives section, you need to define which organization you're working with. In this case, we've got a listing of all the organizations within our mobile world, corporate headquarters. The only one that's presently got a filled in white circle right now is Mobile World. What that is indicating to you visually is that Mobile World is the only organization with existing initiatives, tasks, or milestones. All the other organizations right now just simply don't have any yet defined. You can certainly forge into them and create new initiatives, tasks, and milestones. But for our purposes today, we're going to just go ahead and open the Mobile World organization. And again, note that it's indicating to us here with a blue bar to the left of the initiative section header that we are in the initiative section. We've got the initiatives navigation pane now presented, where we have the opportunity to create a new initiative and select which initiative we want to view. The one that you have selected will be indicated with a white bar to the left of it. And of course, its name will appear up at the top of the overview display area on the right. Within the overview tab, you get basic information about the initiative. Its description, if one has been provided, the total budget, what budget is remaining, what's the start date, what's the due date, and what % of time has already elapsed. Also, projected schedule information is provided to you. The software is smart enough to understand how you're doing and give you a sense of that you, as of the time of this screen capture, it's projecting that we're going to be 21 days late on this initiative, which has apparently a December 1st due date, but it believes we're going to be it'll be December 22nd when it actually is completed. And the projected total budget is, this is positive, is it's 1.7% under budget. So the projected total is 148,000 and will be 2,500 under budget. Now, a very, very common question, I know you guys are all muted right now, but when I present this information live to people, people often pause and say, hold on. How are you coming up with this projected schedule and the projected total budget? And the simple answer to that understandable question is that projected schedule and total budget are calculated via mathematical calculation or fairly complex algorithm called earned value management. Earned value management is a project management technique for measuring and calculating project performance and progress. And what it does is it combines measurements of the project management, if you will, triangle, which are scope, time, and cost or budget. So it's bringing all of those different elements together into a calculation and projecting, your schedule and your budget. And in QuickScore, earned value management is able to provide accurate forecasts of project performance and highlight schedule and budget issues, which of course are important contributions for project management. So in a nutshell, that's what's going on, if you will, behind the scenes to present you with a projected schedule and projected total budget here in an initiative. Further down the overview page, we have a graph or a chart showing you historical performance. And again, as we discussed earlier, you have the opportunity to add some related items to an initiative, a task, or a milestone. Before we move any further, just want to touch again on the graph. We're seeing obviously a graphical presentation of our progression and budget, but we also can use that to toggle over to a status update where you get more of a tabular view of your performance over time. You can see the dates that information was provided, the percent complete, the budget spent to date, and so on. Also note, just off to the right, you also have the opportunity to present or create notes. You can edit any particular historical performance log, and you can delete them if and when appropriate. And of course, if and when it's time to add a new status update, in the lower left corner, you can click Add Status Update, and you'll be provided with an input field, a new row, if you will, within this tabular view, and you provide the date, the percent complete, and the budget spent to date at that point in time. And it, of course, will impact and be logged within this initiative. Up at the top, we've been looking here at just the overview tab. There's also a timeline tab available to you. The timeline tab gives you a Gantt chart style view of your initiatives. And what you're able to do is along the top, you can view, your progression over time. And along the bottom, there's effectively like a magnifier field where if you want to focus your attention more concisely on a particular couple weeks or just a couple months or even down to days, you can use the magnifier slide bar at the bottom to impact what is presented in the Gantt chart along the top. The Gantt chart also provides you gives you the opportunity, I should say, for a bit more information beyond just a graphical over time view. If you click, in this case, I clicked on the red Migrate Servers to Cloud bar, and it shows me the description, the projected schedule, and the projected total budget. So some of the same information that's available to you back on the Overview tab is also similarly quickly accessible via the timeline view of an initiative or a task or a milestone. Okay, in terms of how these things are set up, I gave you a quick overview in the previous demo, but we'll just run through a couple of screen captures here. When you're creating an initiative, of course, you're going to be in edit mode. And as we discussed earlier, you're going to need to provide it a name. That's the minimal requirement. Descriptions are optional, but they're, of course, very helpful. You, of course, need to define what type of object you're creating. Again, your choices are initiative, task, or milestone. You can provide a start date, a due date, of course, a total budget, and then, as appropriate or necessary, assign users or groups to be owners of an initiative. Again, I just said this, but you have some choices in terms of what type of objects you're creating. Our build SEO capability initiative over on the left, a search engine optimization capability, is an example like we saw with our increased ad clicks of a little more of a complex initiative comprised of some tasks and some milestones. And again, as we saw earlier, the setup of that initiative itself was devoid of any start date, due date, or total budget. And again, that start date, due date, and total budget that you do see out here when you're viewing the initiative overview all comes from the underlying, if you will, children of the tasks and milestones that feed that, parent initiative. So As you saw earlier in the demonstration in setting up a task, or I should say when viewing a task, you're going to see again total budget. If there was any description provided, of course, you'd see that as well. Start date, due date, completion date if it has already been completed, as is in this case, whether it was on schedule and how it was doing against budget, and of course, a graphical presentation. So I said this earlier, tasks are sort of like just junior initiatives, and we describe them as to-do items that feed an initiative, but in terms of visualization of them and setup of a task, it's almost exactly like an initiative. Again, you provide a name, set it up, of course, as a task rather than an initiative, give it a start date, due date, and a total budget if there is a budget assigned to it. And again, optionally, you can define users and groups. You'll see that in the next couple of captures, I didn't put the time or effort to assign users or groups to these. But with regard to a milestone, again, in terms of viewing it on the overview tab, again, you'll see the total budget, whatever budget remaining information is available, and of course its due date. Again, you'll get a sense of whether it's on schedule and or on or off budget. And again, down towards the bottom, you can of course always add status updates to any of these initiatives, tasks, or milestones on the overview tab. And again, the setup of a milestone is almost exactly like an initiative and a task. The primary difference is no start date. It just only has a due date, and then the opportunity, as before, to provide a budget. Okay, and this is just another instance or example of a task. We won't bother with that. And again, when you set up an initiative like this build SEO capability with underlying tasks and milestones, this, in my opinion, is where the timeline view can add a little more value than what we showed you earlier, where here you can, of course, uniquely see the performance and the progression over time for your initiative itself, the underlying tasks, the milestones, and what have you. And again, here, the color coding, which I don't think I've touched on yet, if something is red, it indicates that there's something is either over budget or behind on projected schedule. If something is blue on your Gantt chart, then it means that you're both, you're on schedule and you're under budget. So in terms of these Gantt chart views on the timeline tab, blue is really good. Red doesn't necessarily mean that something is bad, but it does indicate that either, again, your projected schedule or your budget is not green. It's not on track. So that's what that indicates. Okay, so with that said, that kind of wraps up my intended sort of introduction. I know it's taken a while, but an introductory overview to initiatives, tasks, and milestones. And now what we want to do is just jump into a live demonstration of just creating a couple of these so that you can see, if you will, the proof in the pudding in terms of what I've shown you both in a demonstration and in screen captures. The story behind this demonstration that we're going to do here is I'm going to change to within the mobile world environment. And again, I hope you're all familiar with mobile world. It's a sample environment. It's like a playground environment that you, as our customers and partners, can use to just employ QuickScore with an already existing, environment in here. And what we have within the financial organization is a basic scorecard of financial profit and loss. And within the revenue area or theme within this financial profit and loss scorecard, there is a measure for training revenue. And you guys already know that I'm the training and customer experience consultant here. So training is very near and dear to my heart. So here we are. I'm going to jump ahead to where we actually sit here at, we're in November. It's late November. So we have data through October of 2018. And what we see is training revenue is dipping. We're not doing well. And the story here is that we historically have outsourced the training, both production and delivery, to one of our partners. And we're realizing that performance over the past couple months is really very troubling. And we've decided to create or set up an initiative to start developing our own training materials internally. So that's the story behind what you'll see me do here in the next couple minutes. And we're going to set up a basic initiative with a couple of tasks and a milestone, and just see how that looks, and just what the performance is and how we set that up. So within the financial organization, I'm going to go to the initiatives section. You'll see that there are presently no initiatives. So I'll click the create initiative button, and we'll say we're going to develop training internally. Look at that, I've got it. Okay. And we're going to set this up as in the upper right, an initiative. We're not going to define a start date, a due date, or a total budget for this initiative itself. We're going to employ some tasks and milestones to give this initiative the sense of when it should begin, when it should end, and what kind of budget. And then we'll set up my, again, ugly twin brother, Teak Keating, as the owner of that initiative. And then I'll click Create in the lower right-hand corner. Then within that Develop Training Internally initiative, we'll create a new initiative item. And this one will be recruit a training manager. Okay, this one we're going to set up as a task. We're going to give it a start date of December 1st, 2018, and a due date of January 1st, 2019. And we'll give this a budget of, what do we want? $10,000. Okay, again, we'll assign this to Mr. Teak Keating and click Create. Okay, now in terms of recruiting a hiring manager, that's great, but we also want to set up, or recruiting a hiring manager, we also want to say that we want to set up a milestone to hire a training manager. Recruiting is all well and good, right? But eventually we got to pull the plug and hire somebody. So we'll set this up as a milestone. And the milestone for this, again, will be, in this case, February 15th of 2019. And we'll provide this a budget of $0 because, and I don't have to put a zero in there, by the way, but we don't expect that we should have to pay any money to just make the decision to hire a training manager after we put money into recruiting that training manager. So we'll set this up with the owner of Teak Keating, and then we'll set up one more task here within the Develop Training Internally initiative. Okay. And this new initiative will be to investigate or research a web platform. Okay. Research web platform, of course, for the delivery of our web-based training. And we'll set this up as a milestone. Nope, sorry, this is a task. My apologies. And again, we'll start this on December 1st. And again, we'll have this end on January 31st, 2019. And again, we'll give this one a total budget of $5,000. Again, we'll set this up to be owned by Mr. Teak Keating. And we'll click Create. Boy, I don't know where my milestone went to recruit a training manager. It disappeared. I don't know if I didn't click Create or something on that. So bear with me here, guys, real quick. We got to actually hire training manager. Set that up as a milestone. Due date, again, what did we say? February 15th. Zero budget. Create. I must have just forgotten to click Create. My apologies. So what we've done here then, of course, is set up an initiative. I'll click Done. And let's just review what I've done. I created an initiative called Develop Training Internally, created a task called Recruit a Training Manager, a task to research a web platform, and a milestone to hire a training manager. And just be aware that when you're in edit mode, you can drag and drop and reposition all of these various entities, initiatives, tasks, milestones, wherever you want, wherever makes logical sense, presentation sense, what have you. Now, this idea of developing a training internally is great. I'm going to scroll down and just note that we don't have any related items. So again, the idea is that we're doing this for a reason. We're trying to impact some area of our business. So we just want to identify a couple of what we consider to be related items to this initiative. So I'm going to click the Add button towards the lower right corner, and we're going to just relate this to a couple of scorecard items, which I think you'll find to be pretty obvious. In the revenue area, of course, the training revenue will hopefully be impacted, ideally positively, by the implementation of this new initiative. And we also know that if we're going to be hiring a new training manager, that our net operating expenses in terms of salaries and wages will most likely be impacted as well. So not quite sure how much we're going to pay that training manager, but there will be some kind of impact theoretically after we hire the training manager. So that initiative has been set up with some related items. We, of course, could do the exact same thing with the tasks or the milestones that we set up. But again, in the spirit of just time, we're just going to move ahead. So the idea here is then with regard to, recruiting a training manager, what I like to do is just provide it with just some basic information, some, if you will, mythical information. So let's say that, in the middle of December 2018, on December 14th, we believe that we're, 15% complete, and we've spent right up front a fair amount of money because we had to buy a bunch of ads. And so we'll add that as a status update. Okay, and then while I'm at it, we'll just do another ad status update here while we're working on this one and say at the end of December 2018, we believe that we were 50% complete, and we had spent $7,000 to that point. And we'll click add. Okay. So we're doing well in terms of providing information there. And again, I'll just jump to the research, the web platform as well, and provide a couple of status updates. Again, I can click on the add status update button. And again, we'll go after the same dates of the middle of December. We'll go with the 14th and say that we're 40% complete at that point. We're making great, we believe we're making great strides, and we've only spent $1,000 at that point. We'll click add. And then one more status update for this research a web platform. Again, we'll set this one up at the end of December. I'll go the 30th and say that at that point, we're 60% complete. And the budget that we've spent to that point is a whopping $2,000. And click add. So what's the impact of that? If we go up here to the Develop Training Internally initiative, what we'll see up here in terms of a graph, first of all, you see an indication of the information that's been provided as we look at the data that's been provided via the underlying tasks. And we can also take a look at the graph for this overall initiative to develop training internally. And what we see is maybe a little bit troubling here at the end of December because our progress, while it's following the linear progression goal in gray, our budget is pretty high, right? So it looks like we're going to be 17 days early in getting this initiative completed, which is good, but we're a bit over budget. And hopefully that's just because we had to spend a bunch of money up front in terms of advertising for recruiting a new training manager. Now, just to share with you guys how easy it is to create the kind of dashboards like you saw when we were looking at the marketing department. That's great that we've got an initiative and we've got related items and we can navigate back and forth between them very easily. No problem there. But again, it does require jumping from screen to screen to screen. So what we want to do here in the financial department is create a simple new dashboard. And again, just in terms of time, I'm going to have to do this fairly quickly. So we'll just call this dashboard, give it a really simple name, and we'll create it. And what I'll do is just give myself a little more real estate to work with here. I'm going to jump into full screen mode. And I always like to start the creation of dashboards with a text item, which is 3 periods, or effectively an ellipsis. And the reason I do that, folks, is it gives me the opportunity to manually expand the visible canvas that I can work with as I'm creating my dashboard. It just gives me a little more peace of mind that I can see the larger canvas screen. And what we want to do here is just add some elements that come from our initiatives and from our related scorecard items. So we'll go to the add widget, and I'll create a chart, which is coming from an initiative. And the initiative I want to see is the develop training internally. And I'll add it. While I'm at it, I'm also going to add the recruit a training manager task and the research web platform task. And then before I adjust this and resize everything, I'm also going to add a couple widgets. Again, they'll be charts. And these are tied to scorecard items. So we want to go out to those related measures that we, related to our initiative, which is under revenue, where we want to see training revenue. And we also, under operating expenses, would like to view our salaries and wages measure. So right now I've got all the items, that I want on this dashboard here on the screen. And from here, folks, it's just resizing and repositioning these elements wherever you want them to go. So in my case, what I want to do is get the initiative itself, which is develop training internally, up at the top. I'd like it then to be supported underneath by the 2 underlying tasks. So I'll just, again, do some resizing and repositioning here. Again, I don't have a ton of real estate to work with, and I do want to just get this done as quickly as possible. But we'll just reposition, resize, and reposition across the board. Okay, and then we'll take that initiative along the top and give it a little more space. So I know that right now this is not a particularly beautiful dashboard, but I'm trying to do it quickly. And hopefully what you're getting the sense is how easy it is to quickly create a dashboard to summarize initiatives and scorecard elements together on one dashboard screen. So I'll go ahead and save that dashboard, and then I'll exit full screen. And then, of course, if I go back here to the dashboards area, I'll get out of edit mode. And voila, there is the dashboard that we created. Again, we're looking at October, 2018. So if I forge ahead here in time, we'll be able to view the performance of those initiatives and tasks and milestones over time. Okay, let's see what's next. There we go. Okay, I'm going to jump back into PowerPoint real quick here, folks. Bear with me. So that wraps up, my live demonstration, creating some initiative tasks and milestones for you, as well as a dashboard. Another thing we want to talk about here, which isn't particularly often done, but it can be helpful to certainly know how to do it. And this is to make an initiative's performance into a measure that you can then track in a scorecard in QuickScore. So I'm going to jump back into QuickScore. And what we'll do is go again to the initiatives area. And I'm going to change the organization I'm working with to Mobile World Inc. I'm doing this because Mobile World Inc. contains a couple of initiatives. You saw these earlier in my screen capture presentation when we were walking and talking through just what's available to you. There's an initiative to migrate servers to cloud. And what we would like to do is make that initiative and its performance over time in terms of the percentage complete as time marches on. We'd like to make that initiative an element in the information technology department of the scorecard that the information technology department uses to track its performance. So right now they've got a very simple scorecard of comprised of just 4 underlying measures. And effectively what we want to do is add that migrate servers to cloud initiative into a measure that will impact the information technology scorecard, which is presently being fed equally information by all of these underlying measures. So with the information technology scorecard selected, I'll click new scorecard item, and we'll give this the name of migrate servers to cloud progress. We will set it up as a measure. We'll leave it as goal and red flag scoring, monthly calendar updating, percentage data type. We'll leave average as the aggregation. And down towards the bottom in the series area, in setting up the actual value, and this is really the crux of how you do this. This is the most important element of this particular little lesson, is you set up the actual value as a calculated value. You click set equation to define an equation. And under the type dropdown, you select initiative. Then navigate to define which initiative you want to point to. And that initiative that we're pointing to lives in Mobile World. And it's the migrate servers to cloud initiative that we want to portray via a measure. And then in terms of the calculation, what is it about that initiative that we want to display as a measure in a scorecard, or employ, I should say, as a measure in a scorecard? And there's a fairly extensive list of data about that initiative that you can select from. In our case, what we care about is the percent complete. So having defined initiative, which initiative, and the percent complete, I'll click add, and then click done. All right, Again, before forging on, since we set it up as gold and red flag, we should give it some thresholds. We'll give it the red flag threshold of 40 and the goal of 70% complete. Again, just in the spirit of time, I'm not going to bother to add owners or updaters, and I'll click create in the lower right corner. You now see that this migrate server to cloud progress exists as a new measure. I'll jump out of edit mode by clicking done at the bottom of the black navigation pane. And voila, there is our migrate server to cloud progress measure. And again, if we look at the information technology scorecard, you see that in the listing of data used in calculations, we now at the bottom here have migrate servers to cloud progress, which has a score, right? For here in December 2018, which is where we've navigated to. Let's take a look at November. It has a score. It is equally weighted against all of the other measures that feed or impact that information technology scorecard. And again, you can edit and work, with that migrate server to cloud progress if you want to. You can work on it a little more deeply and change what kind of weight it carries. Obviously it's equal to the others right now, but you can change the weighting on that measure just like any other measure in any other scorecard. Okay. So that wraps up that little demonstration. We're darn close to the top of the hour. The last thing that I wanted to cover with you guys today before I set you free is a demonstration of what you might see on your home page if you, as a user of QuickScore, have been assigned to an initiative, a task, or a milestone. So jumping back into QuickScore one last time, I'm going to jump to my home page, and there's a couple of areas where I'll just ask you to focus your attention. Under the Your Responsibilities area, there is a My Tasks heading, and if I click on that, I will get a nice consolidated list of all the tasks or initiatives, tasks, or milestones. They all say, in this case, tasks, but it can be, as you see, with, again, the kind of like bulleted list. Develop training internally is an initiative. With the green check, recruit a training manager is, of course, a task. And under marketing, define main keyword for display URL is, again, a milestone. And you have quick and easy access to that list. Just jump in and maybe do something like, add a status update or just review the performance of that to that point in time, or, what have you. The other thing with regard to your homepage is under the alerts area. If you have been set up as an owner of an initiative, task, or milestone, you may get an alert if someone has fundamentally changed the properties of an initiative, a task, or a milestone. You won't be alerted if someone just went in and added an update. That's not what you're going to be alerted to. But if you go in and if someone, let's say, made a fundamental change to this initiative to increase quantity of leads, such as, let's say I increase the budget here from 5,000, let's increase the budget to 57,000. Hang on, let me just do 7,000. So 7,000, right? And down in the lower right-hand corner, if that change is made and someone clicks notify assigned users and groups of change and then click save, that will spark an alert to the owner of that initiative such that on their homepage, they will see here that the budget, total budget, was changed from 5,000 to 7,000. So those are the types of things, initiative, task, or milestone driven that you will see or may see on your QuickScore homepage. Okay, boy, we're down to the wire here this month. Let me just bring back up and summarize what we've done here today and then send you on your merry way. So again, in terms of the agenda, I hope I've covered all these agenda items with you today. Introduction, demonstrations across the board. And I would like to invite you to please come back and join us again in December for our next QuickScore webinar. We love having you guys attend live. We love those of you that view these, recorded via, the library on our website. We just appreciate you coming and attending and learning from these webinars. Thank you for attending. Again, I will reiterate, please feel free to contact me anytime. Again, I'm Tom Keating. I really am passionate about the training and customer experience side of life for you, our Spider Strategies customers. And I'm always available at tom.keating@spiderstrategies.com or via our education department email at learn@spiderstrategies.com. Once again, let me thank you for attending and joining us today, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Take care.